All right, we now have a quorum. Our apologies for the delay, but we'll get right on it.
Good.
I'd like to call this Thursday, July 13th, 2023 meeting of the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District Board to order. We'll begin with a roll call.
McKim,
Here.
Thomas,
Here.
Githens,
Here.
Hamilton,
Here.
Piedmont Smith,
Here.
Jones,
Here.
Swafford.
Not present.
We have a quorum present in the room and 2 attending virtually.
Okay, so we have a quorum and we're operating under hybrid rules. Call attention to the executive committee meeting minutes from May 30th, 2023. This isn't a voting item, but do you have any comments you want to bring to the attention of the board?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Are there any comments that board members want to make on the executive committee meeting minutes? Okay, we'll move on to approval of Board of Directors meeting minutes of June 8th, 2023. Does anybody have any comments that they haven't already provided, Mr. McGlasson? I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval of the Board of Directors minutes from Thursday, June the 8th, 2023.
We have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Hamilton,
Abstain as I wasn't there, thanks.
Jones,
Yes.
Githens,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
McKim,
Yes.
Piedmont Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Controller's report. We'll move to cash flows. Hello, Ms. Martin.
Hi. The cash flow summary is on page 11 of your packet. That shows the balances, and the operating balance as of June 30th was $3,173,146.52. The June 30 balance in the savings account was $1,018,421.58. June 30th balance for the closure bond debt was $172,770.78. And for the capital account was $45,592.47. And the June 30th balance for the landfill post-closure was $741,688.74. The individual cash flow statements for each of these are on page 12 through 18 of your packet.
Thank you.
Questions on that?
Thank you very much. I know it's taken a lot of effort to bring those up to current, and we greatly appreciate that. Let's see, are there any questions or comments from the left?
No, I just also really appreciate seeing these complete.
Amen.
Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Yes, thank you. I just had a couple of questions on the revenues year to date. It looks like glass income from recycling glass has been much lower than expected, as well as the waste tires. Is that just the way things have fallen, or is there any particular explanation for why those levels aren't up to what our budget said?
For the glass, there were some issues where we have had to go back and move some things because they were attributed to the wrong account. So we are in the process of getting, all of those changes have been made, but they're not reflected on this cash flow statement. The waste tires, I'll have to let Tom talk about that because I'm not sure why as far as I know, there's no issues with that as far as the cash flow statement, but I'm not sure why we're.
Tech services, could we get captions turned on, please? Thank you very much.
McGlasson, do you have any? Mr. McGlasson, do you have any feedback about the waste tire program? Is it just not growing the way we thought?
Yeah, the waste tires, again, that's, a relatively new program. We just started accepting those last July, and I think that, staff just overestimated the volume of tires that we would be receiving. I think you'll note when we get into the budgets, the 2024 budget discussion, that we've significantly reduced the anticipated revenue for that program next year.
Yeah, I saw there was a reduction in the expected revenue from glass for next year as well, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Thanks a lot. I know we're trying to move quickly. I'll just try to throw out a couple comments or questions that can be answered along the way. I appreciate page 15, which the chart which gives the balance. So since I've served on this board, the operating balance has gone from about 1.2 million to about 4.2 million at this point. And I do want to continue to ask, what is our strategy? What do we think that balance should be? What plans do we have? In the city, we typically try to keep twice the recommended operating balance, which is twice that is 33% of the annual operating fund in an operating balance. We're at 200% of that probably right now. And I just do want to raise that in particular as we're looking at our budget. And then what we can do with that. And the second thing is, I just am noting, I know we moved some cash to money market to increase revenue. I don't know if we're comfortable with the amount we have there, or we should be doing more there, or what the plan is for that in terms of earning what we can from the cash that we do have. Thanks.
I'll first address the savings account. That's an account that we opened a year and a half ago. At the time, the banking institution we used was not paying interest on the checking account, so it was a way to, in essence, take cash reserves that were not appropriated and get some interest, earn some return on those funds. That's actually something Ms. Martin and I have recently discussed, because the bank that we're with now does pay interest on our checking account, and so we questioned if it made sense to continue to have the two different accounts. So that is something that staff is looking at. And with regard, to the balance, and I'll just, be blunt and honest. At this point, it's something that I have been resistant to spin down, because up until today, I wasn't sure we would have a host fee coming in after today. And I wanted those funds in reserves in order to not have to make significant cuts if we suddenly lost that annual revenue. After, assuming that things move forward and we have a host fee agreement in place after today, then, establishing a reserve amount we'd like to maintain and what can be done with those excess funds is something that staff and the board should look at in earnest and develop a plan to find some beneficial uses for those excess reserves.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on cash flow? All right, let's move on to payroll and claims.
On page 19 of the packet, you have a total for the payroll and claims that were approved for the weeks of June 12th and June 26th. Those were in the amounts of $70,336.64 and $110,458.15 respectively for those weeks. And again, those were approved either approved by the board chair or under the pre-approval resolution. Documentation for those claims follows in the packet on pages 20 to 37. And yesterday, I emailed you the claims that we paid this week in the amount of $270,683.07. And that does include the bond debt payment, which was $151,785. Claims pre-approved under the resolution 2022-02 were $36,713. Payroll was $23,700.50. Payroll claims was $10,613.29. And claims for board approval are $47,871.28. And you might note that in this week's claims for approval, we do have 3 that are vendors that are not on the pre-approved vendor list. So those are ones we haven't seen before. That's Curry Auto for the new truck, Kinzer Body Shop for truck repairs, and Green Up for the GDN membership. So that brings the total of payroll and claims that we're recommending for approval to $451,747.16. Questions on those?
Great. Questions from the left? From the right?
No.
Oh, sorry. Absolutely.
I have one question. On page 19, under the pre-approved claims from the week of 6/26/23, you indicate that those claims were approved on 6/15/23, and I wonder if that is the correct date for the approval.
Probably not.
That looks like a cut and paste error.
Well,
Yep, so that date needs to be changed.
thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from Zoom? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for approval of payroll and claims.
I'll move approval of payroll and claims in the amount of $473,000, and I forget the rest of the amount.
Second.
$451,747.16.
For the amount just stated by Mr. McGlasson. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion.
And a second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Githens.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the host fee agreements, and we have two functionally identical agreements here. Mr. McGlasson, you want to just discuss both, and then we'll do individual motions to approve each of them?
I am going to advise the board of a couple of changes since the board packet went out. The agreements themselves are staying the same. There was, one of the entities did point out a typographical error in paragraph 4B on both agreements. The Republic agreement had an extra word that was removed, and both agreements were missing the same period to separate two sentences. So in the documents that I have prepared for signature, those have been corrected. Also, in both resolutions, the fifth whereas is changed to read, whereas said agreement contains clauses requiring the district to seek to impose the same host fee on any competing solid waste facility that opens within Monroe County during the initial or renewal term of the agreement. That language more accurately mirrors the clause being referenced in the original agreement.
It was just initial or renewal was what was added?
I'm sorry?
Initial or renewal was what was added there?
Initial or renewal term. Yeah.
Right now, the version here just says term. Okay. Thank you. All right.
And other than that, the host fees are identical for both entities. Both entities have indicated that if the board approves the agreements today, they're willing to sign off and enter into these agreements as presented. I think that I would note for the record, Republic did agree that it made more sense to just produce a new agreement that was identical for both entities than to try to reproduce or mirror the existing agreement. So this agreement will replace and supersede the existing host fee agreement with Republic. I guess key points in it, the agreement does call for an initial term of 10 years with options for, I believe, 4 or 5 year renewal terms. The host fee stays the same as the current host fee with Republic, $2.75 per ton. It does cap the gate rate that either facility can charge at, I apologize, I don't have that up in front of me. $59.94 per ton. That does include the host fee. However, they are free to charge less than that if they see fit. And the agreement does continue to contain the price escalation limits on it based on the CPI, with a 12% max over any 3-year period. Subsequently, the district is subject to that same increase should we elect to try to increase the host fee, which is not something we've done one time, and I think that was in 2007, 2008. So it does establish a minimum load fee for residential haulers. This does not apply to commercial entities, but residential haulers, the most that they could be charged for a small load is $40. And then once they get to where the tonnage rate would, 3/4 a ton, you're gonna pay that rate, prorated rate based on the per ton fee. But if you come in there with 500 pounds of material, $40 is the most that you're gonna pay. Does also contain a maximum, should either facility choose to accept bagged waste from residents, $6 per bag is the most that they can charge. And I think those are the key points that the public should be interested in, at least, that affect what they will pay. The remainder of the document is opportunity to cure, how notice is provided, what we do with other facilities, and that pretty much mirrors the existing agreement with Republic Services.
Great. Thank you. Comments or questions from the right?
Okay. So I have a couple. So my quick note for the public is that this is retroactive to May 22nd, 2023, just so the public knows that. The payment.
I'm sorry, say.
The payment is retroactive to May 22nd, it appears.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, the effective date of the agreement is retroactive. Both entities have indicated that they have been escrowing that money, awaiting.
Right, right.
So
But I just wanted to point that out for the public's edification. So in item 3 on both documents, under landfill operations, that we, the district, will not open, own, or operate any landfill transfer facility, incinerator, or similar facility. But then, of course, it says later, we're not prohibited from establishing programs with regard to recycling or other programs that reduce the amount of solid waste in Monroe County. So let me throw a what if at you, which is, what if we were to develop a composting site that would be allowable under this clause?
You know that I want to say yes, but I want to qualify that because it's going to come down to I guess we're using state definitions of waste in here.
Right.
And that's one of the changes I did forget to point out. The host fee will now be paid quarterly to the district, and the tonnage subject to the host fee is going to be based on the amount of Monroe County generated waste the facility reports to item on the required quarterly tonnage report, which is why the payments will be received quarterly. To answer your question, my first response is to say yes, but I would probably need some discussion and interpretation of state definitions of waste and where food waste would fit into that.
Right,
Vegetative
right.
material would not be a.
Right. Okay. Well, I think it's something to look into as we think about, what our next steps are to provide that for the county. The last thing is, I just would say that when this kind of an item comes up, what comes to mind naturally for me is the recycling agreement. So I'm just going to say that I hope that that's going to be looked at and reviewed soon in terms of whether we pay or get paid for recycling, haulage costs, et cetera. So I'm just going to put that out there. You don't have to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from the left? Any comments or questions from Zoom? Okay, yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, it seems pretty good to me that we're getting an identical 2 contracts here with 2 providers. Tom, was there anything we didn't get that we sought in this, or what were the issues of contention in terms of this? Because it seems like you've done a really good job to get both of these lined up this way.
No, there's really not anything that we did not get, that we were expecting or adamant that we got. Some of the language, there was some back and forth on some of the language that's used in a couple of the sections, but I don't think any of the final language has a negative impact on the district or what it sought out of this agreement.
Well, congratulations. Well done. Thanks.
Thank you.
I agree. Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Yes, I also want to thank the parties for coming to this agreement. This is a good outcome. I am a little concerned that we don't have an answer to Commissioner Thomas's question about whether the definition of waste would include composting and whether we would be able to move ahead with a composting program without involving Rumpke and Republic. But I suppose they should be allowed to, bid to run such a program if they are interested or have that capacity, so we can cross that bridge a little later. I wanted to also underline something that Mr. McGlasson said, in that that $2.75 disposal fee that comes back to the district, not disposal fee, I'm sorry. What's the term I'm looking for?
Host fee.
Anyway, the host fee. It hasn't been increased in 15 years, so it's something we might look at as we do our future planning and trying to reduce waste going to final disposal and consider composting. We might, keep that in mind, that this rate can be increased if we have a good reason to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I will entertain a motion for approval of the first resolution, 2023-08.
I move approval of Resolution 2023-08.
Second.
Motion and a second. Looks like Mr. Hamilton, Mayor Hamilton has a question or comment?
No.
Nope. Okay. Any other comments or questions from the right or left or Zoom? Any public comment on this agreement with host fee agreement with Rumpke?
Hi there, Joseph Winia here, Chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Also just wanted to echo my gratitude to the district staff and to both the representatives of Rumpke and Republic for all the time that went into putting this together, and I appreciate everyone's efforts. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Is there any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Githens,
Yes.
Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
McKim.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thanks. Okay, I'll entertain a motion on resolution 2023-09 with Republic.
So moved.
We have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on resolution 2023-09 Republic host fee agreement.
I'm sorry, I missed the second. Who was the second? Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions from board members? Seeing none, is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Jones,
Yes.
Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Githens,
Yes.
McKim,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Okay, now we have resolution 2023-10, which is a resolution to amend resolution 2023-01, a resolution to to amend Resolution 2022-13, ordinance for fixing salaries for calendar year 2023.
Hopefully this is the last time we do this, or we're going to get lost reading the resolution.
Yes. Okay. I almost thought I got it wrong.
Breadcrumbs, please.
Yeah.
So yes, I apologize for having to amend it again, but this, as you can see in the memo on page 63 of the packet, this is really related to some reorganization staff is implementing at our South Walnut facility. A couple of recent resignations gave staff the opportunity to look at our structure over there, and if there are ways to be, more effective and more efficient with our staffing, with how that staffing affects the provision of our services. And Mr. Long and I, after some discussion, determined that given that our Green Business Network coordinator was one of the resignations, that it made the most sense to not replace that position. That position already spent a lot of time in one of the trucks doing the routes for the green business collection, and talked with our waste reduction specialist, Kayla Strand, about her assuming those duties related directly to dealing with the businesses, promoting the program, trying to grow and bring new customers on. She seemed very eager to take that on, and we don't feel that the time necessary to do that would be overly burdensome to her. In fact, think that given what we're already asking her to do related to businesses in the community, it just kind of fit like a glove to incorporate that into what she's doing. So, and instead of on the recycling side, instead of replacing that GBN coordinator, we would bring on a second truck driver. And I would note for the record that our budget currently has a vacant truck driver position appropriated. So the funds are there to do that for the most part. You'll note in there that since we're bringing in or making these changes and bringing the second truck driver in, we're also looking to eliminate the two different truck driver positions at different rates and have two identical truck driver positions paid the same hourly wage. And then I guess the last real change in here had to do with our landfill compliance support staff position, landfill HHW and compliance support staff position, asking him to take on some of the duties that the GBN coordinator was doing related to working with our orange bag vendors and doing the orders with them, maintaining our orange bag inventory, and also beyond that, asking him to take on a little more responsibility just related to the maintenance and upkeep of the recycling centers. Take some of that load off of our operations director, and change that position to compliance inspector. We do still anticipate a good deal of his time being involved working with our environmental compliance department, illegal dump cases and remediations, but also add and facilities coordinator to that to reflect the orange bag and management and maintenance of the recycling centers that we're asking. So, so you have behind the memo, you have clean and red line versions of the 3 job descriptions that are being changed. Would also note, and I apologize, discovered some errors in the actual resolution presented in the packet. The 7th whereas is missing a couple of words. So it should say, whereas the waste reduction specialist and compliance HHW and landfill support staff positions will be assuming additional duties. Will be was left out of the original draft, and also had a number flip-flop in the now therefore under number 1C. The truck driver wage should be $17.09, not $19.07. That would also need to be changed on page 2 of the resolution under the maximum fixed wage for that position. Have corrected versions of the resolution with me for signature after the vote.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much for that explanation. We also spent a fair amount of time discussing this at the executive committee meeting. Let's see, are there any comments or questions from the left? From the right? Any from Zoom? Okay, I will entertain a motion, and you have to read the entire name of the resolution.
I'm sorry, for information purpose, did neglect to say that the amended salary resolution does also increase the waste reduction specialist and new compliance inspector and facilities coordinator wages by $1.50 an hour.
Yeah, we saw that on
the
the
duties.
Thank you.
I move approval of Resolution 2023-10, a resolution to amend Resolution 2023-01, which was a resolution to amend Resolution 2022-13, an ordinance for fixing salaries for calendar year 2023.
Very well done. Motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Thomas,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Githens,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
McKim.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, so now we are moving on to the budget, and the 2024 proposed budgets. I just want to make it clear, this is not a voting item for tonight's meeting. This will be a voting item for the August meeting. So this is just for presentation and discussion by the board.
Just a minute, I'm going to share my screen here when I get it up.
And when you speak, can you make sure the microphone's right in front? Sorry.
Sorry for the delay there. So this is, again, the staff's initial proposal for the 2024 operating debt service and cumulative capital fund budgets for the district. The general overview, comparing it to the current year budget. We have an almost $85,000 increase in tax revenue. That is based on what I believe is a now confirmed 4% growth quotient on the maximum levy. We do see a pretty good decrease in fees from HHW and disposal, which we'll get into in the detail. No change in other income, and a slight increase in the sale of recyclables. Personnel services, that's going to be mostly related to cost of living increase. Not much of a change in supplies. A pretty good increase in services and charges. That pretty much comes from one appropriation we'll explain in the detail. Small decrease in our capital outlays. So again, you see the county property tax was capped at 4%.
I'm sorry, is there any way to minimize the box that shows other people on Zoom? Because we can't see the whole. Perfect, thank you.
Okay. So the property tax was capped at 4% this year by House Enrolled Act 1499. Did just within the past day or two, did get some confirmation that 4% will in fact be the growth quotient for 2024. Our the vehicle license and commercial vehicle excise tax, both estimated based on previous year's experience and year to date. And then you see for our HHW and disposal, just based on, what we've seen trending this year and then over the past few years, unfortunately, some of those, we did just see a need to decrease expectations on some of those. So that's what's reflected there. Not making any change on our host fee revenue. That's kind of an unknown with the second facility coming online. Some time ago, did get some estimate from Rumpke of, Monroe County generated material they thought they could capture that wasn't currently going through the existing transfer station. And if in the packet, and I apologize, I don't know off the top of my head what page, there's a comparison spreadsheet in the packet that the board sees every year. And you'll see that the current year host fee revenue is slightly off projected for this time of year. But again, we have the escrowed amount and we don't know the true impact on the host fee of the second facility. So we're leaving that the same on the projection for 2024. And rental income is the same. That's that's the money we get from the county for housing the Purdue Extension Services in our office building, and we also get a small amount from the Vectren for gas storage out on underneath the landfill properties. So, but those stay pretty consistent. Again, sale of recyclables, again, not which we lost that revenue some years ago when we entered into the existing terms with Republic for the management of materials. As not sure what the future holds with that, so we didn't want to anticipate revenue that didn't materialize, so we're still leaving that at 0 for 2024. As noted earlier, the sale of glass is off this year, and so as Ms. Martin indicated, we're still cleaning some things up in our general ledger that may correct as we make more corrections in the general ledger, but it does appear that glass revenue is off, so we're reducing that for 2024. Metal recycling, we are increasing based on our current tonnages and what the market rates are, and I think that that's one that I think your cash flow statement and your comparison sheet are not going to match on, because there is a general ledger error we have identified that was not corrected before the cash flow statement was produced, where we have since corrected it. Ms. Martin and I have confirmed that the revenue numbers and year-to-date numbers indicated in the comparison spreadsheet in the budget portion of the packet are accurate and correct and do match the corrected ledger. So we're confident with those revenue numbers. Then on the expense side, so personnel services, cost of living increase provided to staff in 2024. This would be a year we just do a flat increase. So we've done a $2,000 flat increase. That was based on taking the CPI from I think through April of this year over the CPI through April of last year, and it came out to a little over 4%. Applied that to the median wage for district employees, which came out to $1,976, so somewhere in that range. So we rounded that up for a $2,000 across the board increase for staff. The big item here to note is that second section there, that due to staffing changes over the past few years, we have fewer enrollees in our health insurance. We also, if you look at the comparison sheet, actual expenditures have fallen short of budgeted appropriations consistently every year. So we're not requesting an increase in that appropriation for this year. And even accounting, we're looking at you don't get numbers from insurance companies 6 months ahead of your renewal, but anticipating, in the range of a 12% increase, taking that with our current enrollment, the $410,000 appropriation we have for this year, which is still sufficient to cover the current coverages and have funds available for a new employee that may sign on, anybody that has to make an increase in coverage due to birth of a child, getting married, or anything like that. So we still have the excess in that appropriation to cover those changes if they occur, and comfortable not increasing that appropriation for next year. And again, this budget does not include a Green Business Network coordinator position. So again, you have a salary wage line, it's $10,000 increase. We have 5 salaried employees that are getting $2,000 more. So, the hourly wage increases $35,000. And again, that's applying that wage increase, also the elimination of the GBN position. Dropping overtime a little bit based on recent experience where we've not been hitting our appropriation, so we can drop that a little bit. Longevity's going to pretty much stay the same. FICA, Medicare unemployment. I guess the FICA and Medicare are strictly related to the wages. Unemployment rate we don't see changing. And again, we're not asking for an increase in health insurance. We do anticipate a 10% increase from Everside for the wellness clinic access, and retirement increases based on the wage increases. So in our supply categories, in the interest of time, not a whole lot of significant changes here. In fact, most of the lines are actually decreasing. Small increase until you get to the orange bag purchases, and that is the contractual escalator clause that's in the contract we did last year with Waste Zero for orange bags. So. On our services and charges category, again, we have our lab services for the landfill groundwater is advised they're going to have fee increases coming, so that line's increased by $5,000. The other professional service line is the big one. When we were discussing the budget with the executive committee, it was proposed to appropriate $50,000 to have funding available for the district to continue to investigate and try to do some things related to food waste collection and composting. Whether that's us doing something, whether it's a public-private partnership, trying to subsidize somebody else's program. We weren't sure what that would be, but the executive committee wanted to have funds available so that we could move that forward if an opportunity arose. So that's the increase in that line. And I will note we're decreasing our telephone services by $1,500. That's Mr. Long and I have been discussing this for a couple of months, and we're changing service providers at our rural sites. We have 2 sites that have to have AT&T, and we're going to get 4 phones through a cell company for less than one of those site bills on a month. Mm-hmm. So that change will occur here in the next couple of months and continue through for next year. Again, minimal changes in these lines.
Can we also change the internet provider out at the landfills?
We have looked at that, and the one real option we thought we had was through the electric company, REMC, but they were going to classify it as a business. The business rate is substantially higher than the residential rate. But we did investigate that. Yep. So.
Thank you.
I would note that the liability policy, not really, only $1,000 increase. Would note for the record on your comparison sheet, the year-to-date expenditures were encumbered funds from 2022. That was paying the current year's premium. We just didn't get that processed before the end of the year, so those were encumbered funds. That's your year-to-date expenditures. But the pollution prevention policy is due. It'll actually be on the next premium this December. But looking at crunching our numbers, the plan is we're going to encumber a portion of this year's funds and take part of that $75,000 appropriated for next year. That will cover, and we'll pay that premium at the first of the year, and that will give us the funds needed to pay the pollution prevention premium, and leave enough money next year to pay the following year's premium in December. So that's why you don't see that significant increase because of the pollution prevention policy coming due. Again, not a whole lot. I hope I don't lose that. My computer's telling me my internet connection's unstable, so I hope my share screen doesn't disappear. But at any rate, again, minimal changes. Machinery and equipment rental is increasing, and I do apologize off the top of my head. I don't know what that is. I will have to research that, and I will get that to staff and the CAC, that explanation for that increase. Dues and subscriptions going up. As you saw in the claims we did earlier, we did join a new organization for us, the Green Business Engagement National Network. That's an association we've previously discussed that our waste reduction specialist has gotten involved in, that we believe is going to be a great resource for her. So we did join that, and we anticipate continuing that membership on an annual basis. Unfortunately, leachate disposal going up. That's based on what we've spent year to date, previous years, and leachate generation that we're seeing. We felt that we needed to give ourselves a little more cushion there. HHW disposal is increasing. We are decreasing our other collection and disposal contracts. That's where our orange bag bulky item tonnages are less than anticipated, which is a good thing. And so we're dropping that a little bit next year. Hauling contracts does go up. There is an escalator clause in the hauling contract. So we did need to budget for that. But we do get a significant decrease in the glass hauling. We do anticipate in the near future moving our glass to the new Rumpke facility, which will avoid having to haul it to Indianapolis. And I apologize, I didn't gloss through that on the revenue side, but there on the expense side, the waste, you see the decrease in the waste tires. There's an associated decrease on the revenue side that Ms. Piedmont Smith asked about earlier. So that is being accounted for next year. And recycling fees are coming down. Since those fees went into effect, maybe we overestimated our tonnages or how the impact of those fees, but we've not met the appropriation, so we're dropping that down for next year. And then on the capitals, again, every year we always appropriate $10,000 into the landfill for other improvements, just kinds of as a just in case we have to rebuild a lift station or something that happens out there that we just want those funds available, and then no equipment, computer equipment purchases anticipated in 2024. So that pretty much encompasses the operating budget in a nutshell. I can do the debt and the capital real fast, or if we want to discuss the operating, whatever the board's pleasure.
Well, let's, I guess there's really not much to say about debt service and capital. Why don't you just finish those and then we'll do questions.
So, so the debt service, as always, it's a net zero budget. The revenues are based on the payments due for the year. Our amortization table, you can see there's a $600 drop in the total payments made for the debt service in 2024 from this year. And the cum cap, again, up. I forgot the total revenues is, I'm sorry, that should be a zero, not $50. I missed that. We don't budget for the interest we know we're going to get, but DLGF some years ago suggested that even if we aren't requesting appropriations, we pass a zero cumulative capital fund budget, just so we have that budget on record with the state, that should we need to appropriate the funds, it's a quicker, easier process if we have that budget on record.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's quite a lot of information, very helpful. And again, we'll discuss here, and then again, we'll have an opportunity to discuss it again at the next meeting. So any questions or comments on the proposed budget from the left?
I have one question. I was concerned when I went through the draft, that there wasn't a change in the host fee. Will we have additional information before the next meeting about how much has been escrowed, and whether or not there is a shift, given that we now have a second?
I mean, I don't want to state definitively because I can't speak for the two entities paying the host fee, but I would hope that we should be able to get some information from them. Rumpke would be the one in question. That's the new facility that we're looking at potentially capturing waste that's made its way out of Monroe County previously. And that's really that's where the difference, are we going to bring in tonnage that's been getting out of Monroe County and have that subject to the host fee? That's the information we need to know if we need to increase or decrease the host fee.
Well, and I am pleased that having Rumpke here allows us to reduce what we're paying for glass hauling too.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas?
Sorry. I just want to reiterate something that I raised earlier, which is I really do hope that we look into a robust, not a partial, but a really robust program for food waste composting somewhere in Monroe County. And so I'm happy to see that some dollars were allocated for that. I would hope that sometime next year we're going to be talking about an additional appropriation and from capital to really do something really serious about this, because this is a huge issue. But like everything else in this meeting and throughout the whole year, thanks to the executive committee and thank you to staff for getting a lot of work done between these meetings. So thank you for all of this work that it took to put this together. I've looked at it, I've compared it to last year's, but I'm going to want to look at it again before the next meeting. If I have further questions, I'll send you an email. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see, I believe, is there anyone on Zoom who has any questions or comments? I know Councilmember Piedmont Smith had to leave. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
do. Yeah, thanks a lot. A couple. One, I just noted the healthcare expenses it looks like it's over 40% of wages and salary. I don't know if that's a typical pattern. I got to check the city to make sure we're not that, but I just wanted to see if that's a standard pattern that we have, and if there are options to look at that. That feels pretty high. Second, I wanted to just ask, our fundamental mission as a solid waste management board is to reduce solid waste land disposal. And I just wondered if I apologize, I don't know, but do we have data over the last several years of the tonnage of solid waste landfill disposal generated in our district, how we're doing on that? I saw the state average is 21% diversion or something, and I just didn't know how that's going. And that does really lead to, I'm going to feel pretty strongly that this budget ought to reflect some plans to look at that balance that I talked about and you mentioned earlier, Mr. McGlass. And I really think I wouldn't want to wait through 2024 to really try to develop ways to invest that money that's, in my view, accumulated to levels that we should be reinvesting it, particularly to try to address landfill use. And it often takes planning money and other efforts to really develop that. So when this comes, I will be asking about what are the plans to address that, and appreciate if you have comments on those first two questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Mr. McGlasson, any reactions?
Well, I just, as mentioned earlier, I've, been hesitant to spend down reserves with the uncertainty of the host fee. And I think that, Mayor Hamilton brings up, valid points. And for me personally, now that I have confidence that the host fee is secure and we won't have to rely on those funds to keep us afloat for any period of time. Yeah, that's something that we need to seriously look at. And if it's not something that that is included in any approved or adopted budget, we always have the option to seek additional appropriations when we identify a project, a plan, something that we want to try to implement to move our mission forward. So.
Okay. And I believe there was another question at the beginning. I honestly have forgotten what it was, but you had a more specific question.
The healthcare costs, and then do we have data on the solid waste statistics? I'm sorry, I probably should know them. I just don't over the years.
Yeah, the solid waste statistics, the data is available. I don't have that here in front of me, but that is certainly something that we could do some research on and crunch some numbers and have some information available at the August meeting when the budget comes back to the board, for approval to take to the county council for adoption. And then the health care, are you asking about the health insurance, or we actually also have supply and service expense lines related to health and safety? I just want to clarify which line it is you're asking about.
I was just looking at the health insurance line for 410.
Okay. Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's one we're not requesting an increase for. When you look at the comparison sheet, I think we have been over appropriated in that line historically, but it is one that, unfortunately, we're a 28-person organization. We don't have a lot of pull with health insurance companies, to get the best rates available. We have investigated being a part of the county's healthcare program or health insurance program. My recollection was because of the self-funded portion of the county's health insurance that county legal felt that was an insurmountable obstacle to figure out how to absorb the district into that. Certainly something that could be looked at again. But
are you allowed to join the Advanced Indiana Municipalities Trust? Do you know? You might just check on that too. AIM Medical Trust. I don't know if you're allowed to or not, but we found it very, very cost effective. In the city's part, if you want to talk to the HR person there, you could. But anyway, I just aligned.
That's not a program I was familiar with, so we can certainly investigate that. So, but it is something that we look at with our benefit administrator every year, and we make every effort to get the best rates that we can. Unfortunately, we're a small entity, and we don't have a lot of negotiating power.
Thank you. And I just have a couple quick questions. First of all, back on the health insurance premium increase, you mentioned 12%. Is that also going to apply to the employee portion of the premiums as well? Or is that all just being absorbed by the employer?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what if just for round numbers, if an employee's, employee plan is $1,000 a month, it's an 80-20 split with the district, and a 12% increase, it's going to go to $11.20 a month, and then that'll split 80-20 between the employee and the district. So exactly how, off the top of my head, I can't calculate how that breaks down, but that's how that works.
But essentially, so the employees will see a 12% increase in their
the employee will see that increase, yes.
Thanks. And then, and you may have said this, but I'm sorry, the sound was bad, or you may have addressed this. There was a $500 request from the CAC in one of the early lines. I think maybe a supply line.
Yeah, I did. I did kind of gloss over that. That's a new the CAC, and I will let one of their members address the rationale. But historically, the CAC has only ever requested and received appropriations for training and education and travel. They try to attend the association conference and maybe one or two other conferences some members try to attend. But this year they did say they would like some supply money, and I would ask Mr. Winia or Ms. Edwards to
Please.
address the reason for that request.
Sure. Joseph Winia here again, Chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Something I was going to mention during the CAC report, but can just touch on now, and that was just, it's part of our 2023 or 2024 strategic planning. Some of the interests we had were both providing opportunities for increased outreach to attract membership, and also to potentially represent the CAC at different events that the district attends. So potentially any material that would come along with that, such as printed materials or apparel or something to help create I guess a brand and a presence for the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for that. And then I guess just the other one is just a comment, and that's on the food waste composting, the $50,000 appropriation. Indeed, I agree with Commissioner Thomas that we want to look at, and I think everybody on the executive committee also strongly agreed that we want to look at seriously at options for food waste composting. To replace the former commercial provider that we had, and so really that 50,000 is just kind of a placeholder as much as anything, just to show that we're serious about it, that we intend to study it and take action as it makes sense. So any other comments or questions on the budget?
I have a general question. Do we need a quorum for the rest of the meeting?
Well, we do have at the conclusion of this meeting, we have a joint meeting with the CAC scheduled.
Right. Okay.
For that to be an official joint meeting, there would need to be a
Right.
quorum of both parties present.
Got it. That's why I'm asking. Okay, great. I'm going to have to take them out first and I'll bring them in. All right, I'm just going to scoot away for a minute during reports.
Okay. All right. Well, and so I guess let's move on to CAC report then.
All right, Joseph Winnie once more. Just adding to a previous statement, this was part of the content that we discussed at our last regular meeting, which was more reflections on our strategic planning. So talked about, well, our budget request, and then also potentially having more educational opportunities in terms of bringing speakers to the Citizens Advisory Committee rather than going out to attend other events. So even internally with different staff from the district to potentially learn more about the operations and to just have more engagement beyond just the members of the Citizens Advisory Committee. So apart from that, we've been having two members of the CAC are on the district's rebranding subcommittee. So we've still been moving forward with discussions on the logo process and are making good progress there. And then lastly, we had a couple of attendees at the Monroe County Fair to help represent the CAC at the district's booth. And that's what the CAC has been up to.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Winia? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. McGlasson.
I'm going to start with something that's not in the memo that's come up since the packet went out. Had discussion with some other district directors, and we finally got around to addressing some changes that items made to the waste tire management rule. And one of those changes potentially impacts the program we started last July where we accept tires at our household hazardous waste facility. So the new rule uses language that really addresses tire amnesty days, but the interpretation that we've got is that the state's not drawing a distinction between amnesty and fee-based programs. So what the new rule does is limit solid waste districts that accept tires to not accepting tires for more than 60 days in a calendar year. But there's a potential out. It's 329, Title 329 of the Administrative Code, Article 15 is what we're talking about here, and then 329 AC 15-1-1C6 does provide the opportunity for a solid waste district or other local government entity to appeal to the commissioner to get written approval to accept tires for more than that 60 days in a calendar year. So we have submitted such a request, and until we're going to continue on until somebody says stop, or we get that approval that says you're good to keep going. So just to make the board aware of that change and the district's response to that. So and then just in the memo, again, we were continuing with rebranding, and unfortunately logo development is taking, I think, much longer than any of us had hoped or anticipated, but we are making progress, and again, we want to have a logo that we're all going to be happy with, that adequately represents the district and what we do, and not something that we're going to turn around 6 months later and say, this isn't it. So we're keeping at it, and we're making progress. We did have a booth at the fair this year. We shared our booth with County Highway MS4, the stormwater program. Did have some CAC help to staff the booth, which was nice to have. And we also raffled off a rain barrel and a compost bin that we had left over from last time we did those sales. So, and we've had, unfortunately, I forget, we had well over 100 entries on that raffle, so we were pleased with the interest in that and the visits to our booth. Myself and Ms. Procrowell also had an opportunity to visit a facility called Rethink Incorporated in Terre Haute recently, and it's a nonprofit organization, but their goals and programs and services are very similar to the Solid Waste District. They do community gardens. They have a zero waste store. They actually have a plastic upcycling shop where they shred, melt, and make clipboards, clocks, plastic timbers that can be used to make chairs. It was a neat facility, a neat operation. Hopefully something that we can find a facility we can find a way to collaborate with in the future. So, and following up on recent, we're continuing to work with the city of Bloomington, continuing discussions with Earth Mama Compost out of Indianapolis in an effort to try to get food waste collection and or composting as a viable option here in Monroe County again in the near future. So. And then beyond that, you have your media and advertising summaries, and we'll just highlight that Ms. Procrowell did have a composting workshop in the district administration office on June the 10th. I think she said they had 26 attendees for that. It's a pretty good turnout. Also had some representatives from MC Iris there to provide information on jumping worms, which I actually got to see the other day because somebody brought some in for the 4-H office to identify, and they do jump. So, and with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. McGlasson? Okay, so then we'll move on, I guess, to Mr. Long.
Hey everyone. I will start with the recycling and reuse. We ran a pilot program at the Monroe County Fairgrounds. We stuck out toters to collect plastic bottles, knowing it was going to be hot and a lot of water was going to be passed out. It was, I feel, a good success. We was able to recycle quite a bit. We only had like 7 or 8% contamination, which I think was pretty good. It's something that we're trying to be involved in and getting toters out in the public's eye. That way, maybe as they get used to seeing them, more people recycles. We have a benefit car show going on at the fairgrounds this weekend. We may try to have our toters out there in it if we're allowed to, and if people, see them again, hopefully they recycle it and they start to look for them. And to touch on the GBN, the Green Business Network coordinator thing, part of it is I've been in the trucks for the last week and a half working with other staff members, and we've done like a self-audit system. So as we've added businesses over the course of the year, we've just kind of put them into different holes in the schedule. And now we're able to go back through and move some around. That way we're not got our trucks. We lower the carbon footprint of our trucks being around from running from one side of the town to the other. So we're able to save a lot of time by doing this audit system on ourselves. And that's helping us, reduce, not reduce employees, but reduce the amount of time that we're spending doing some of this stuff. And Kayla is already calling the businesses. So it makes sense, to have one person as the face reaching out to all the different businesses and 2 or 3 people trying to reach out doing that. The hazardous materials, again, we worked with the fairgrounds. They wanted to switch from fluorescent light bulbs in all their commercial buildings to LED to save. We worked with them and was able to recycle all their fluorescent light bulbs, their ballast and stuff. That way they could move forward with doing LED light bulbs. And the rural recycling centers, we are working on repairing some of the parking areas. It's a never-ending battle, parking or potholes and stuff in the blacktop, gravel being moved around. Myself and Danny Percifeld's been out there helping me quite a bit, patching potholes and moving gravel. And that's what I have for you guys. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you very much. Any questions from Mr. Long? Please.
I have a couple of, I do have a quick question, which is, are you still using an organic herbicide at those parking lots instead of using Roundup?
Right now, I don't think we've used hardly any pesticides or anything. We've been using a battery. I got most of our sites a battery operated weed eater, so we're going with that way.
Great.
And I'm trying to push more push mowing. We are trying to vinegar, dish soap, and water solution, salt. It's a never ending battle also. I don't know if I can't say for sure about without being there 100% of the time, but I don't think any Roundup's been used. Mm-hmm. And we're definitely not buying it, I can tell you that.
Right, thank you. And Mr. McGlasson and I had an interesting discussion at the fairgrounds while we were working different booths about the recycling effort, and I really appreciate that. I thought that was a great idea, and it was great to hear that it was successful. I told him to mark the calendar for the solar eclipse in April of 2024, so just keep your eyes on it. Thank you.
Yeah, and we do have plans to meet with the fairgrounds next year to offer more recycling or see what we can do.
Right. Thank you very much. All right. If nobody else has any questions for Mr. Long, we'll go to Mr. Paulson.
Hey, good afternoon. Lee Paulson, Landfill Director, Compliance Director. The report kind of speaks for itself for what we've had going on for the month of June. The highlight would be that Mary Beth, Danny, and I, with the help with Bynum Faneuil, we drained the collection pond at the landfill because it was overgrown again with biological invasive weeds again. So without using chemicals or anything that could change our permit requirements for our NPDES permit, this is what we chose to do, which is why we have a leachate hauling bill for the month of June. But we got it cleaned out, trying to implement a couple ideas to try to see what we can do with trying to fight nature, I guess, is all we're trying to do, is trying to prevent invasive weeds from growing in a closed system. So, but it got all cleaned up, but it was a full 2 weeks of us being in the pond and stuff. So, but other than that, we kind of saw a big drop off in our roadside stuff because we were both, all three of us were in the ponds, and then after that, the staffing started to turn over, so Danny was needed more with the hazmat and driving trucks and stuff. And I dealt with a family loss, so I was out for a week dealing with that. So our numbers were a little off, but nothing dramatic for this time of year when it gets real hot and the grass is all up. So, but a lot more activity in the adopter road, so that's still continuing to be a very big positive. So we're just kind of running with it. So you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Paulson? I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, good.
All right, now we are at the point in our agenda where we take public comment on items that were not on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to comments from directors. Is there anyone on the board who'd like to make a comment? From the left? From the right? Anybody on Zoom left? Okay, and I believe Mr. Hamilton had to leave as well, so nobody is on Zoom. All right, well, with that, just to let everybody know that as soon as this ends, as soon as we adjourn this, we're going to convene our joint meeting with the CAC.
Could I ask for like a 5-minute break between meetings to get
Yes.
signatures, restrooms, and whatever people need to take care of? Thank you.
Yes, okay. We are adjourned.